You're watching Grassroots Resistance Collective, Texas grown, people powered, and unapologetically bold. We expose corruption, amplify real candidates, and give voters the truth the system tries to bury. No spin, no sellouts, just resistance. Let's get to work.
Tober, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening. It is Tuesday, September 23rd. Welcome to Grassroots. I'm here with Jen and Chastity, my co-hosts and colleagues, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Vikki Goodwin. She is a four-term Democratic member of the Texas House of Representatives. She's representing District 47, and she's also taking on Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick for his seat here in Texas. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's definitely been a wild time. I know the three of us here, we've had our share of experiences with Mr. Dan Patrick. I guess my first question to you would be, what compelled you, I guess, to run right now against Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick?
Well, I think it's time for change. Like, time for change was yesterday. We've been under Republican leadership for 30 years, and we've seen how so many things are going the wrong direction. And really, tight control. The legislature is very tightly controlled by Dan Patrick. In the Texas House, we often get bills passed. They go over to the Senate. They're bipartisan, and they just die in the Senate. So good ideas go over to the Senate to die. It's really in the Senate, it is Dan Patrick's way or the highway. You go along with him. And the weird thing is, it's so different in the House than in the Senate. But in the Senate, they have a roll call. They don't have the buttons like we push to vote on bills. They do a roll call, and they only call maybe the first 5 or 6 senators, and then they stop. And I asked a senator, why is that? Like, they obviously have to get votes from all of you. And she said, well, he knows in advance how we're going to vote. Isn't that crazy? So the way things are running in the Texas Senate, it has got to change. And I've been thinking about this, not just for this year, but I've been thinking about this for a number of years. I just never really thought I would be the one to run against Dan Patrick, but when I talked to my fellow legislators and nobody else was saying they were going to step up and run against him, I just felt like I had to. This is the time.
Thank you.
That's very interesting that you said that, because I remember during the regular session, Chastity and I actually noticed, I forgot exactly what the situation was, but there was like a vote that had changed after.
Oh,
Remember
the
that?
button.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was the
the
exact
button.
same thing with the buttons, but I remember I saw that and I kind of freaked out. I actually called
Oh,
remember?
it was yes. Okay, so it was saying like everybody voted, and then they were like, it changed their votes from yay to nay or nay to yay. Like I was
Yes.
convinced to vote yes, and it said I voted no, and it happens all the time. But this was like a button misfunction.
Oh, that's in the House. Yes. So we have what's called strict enforcement. And when that happens, it's because somebody thinks that members are voting for their desk mates or other people, and maybe those members aren't even on the floor. And so if the vote is close enough, a member can call strict enforcement. So then they go through, they do the roll call, and they find out if we're in our seats, we can actually vote. But if we aren't there and our desk mate voted for us, that won't count. But a lot of times, because there's this recount going on, some members will be like, oh man, I really should have voted for this bill and I voted against. So they'll go up to the front to the journal clerk and they'll say, oops, my desk had a malfunction. But really, it's because they changed their mind.
Wow, that's interesting.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
That's a little inside.
Well, because we
Little
we were
insider
like, how
information.
many
For
times has this
sure.
happened? Like how any other bill that nobody ever called this on, how many other times has this happened? Is it okay for that to happen? It feels like it's not okay from my from
And that's
us
what I had
watching.
asked
Like,
them
it
too.
doesn't
Whenever,
seem like that's okay.
for sure, I had asked
Well,
them. I was like, I caught this because we were happening to be watching it at that time. How many times has this happened in the
Yeah.
past? Though, yeah, it was definitely it was a
It
weird
doesn't happen
situation.
too often. It's usually on the really controversial bills that somebody really wants to get through, but it's going to be a real tight, real close vote.
Hmm.
And so, if members are absent, sometimes even when Democrats have been trying to block bills from passing, if some of our members are absent, we're like, oh no, they're not here. We're going to have to text them and see if they can get to the building real quick.
So you've actually framed good government as doing what individuals can't do. How does that guide your decision making as far as what bills you bring to the floor, how you advocate for your community, etc.?
Yeah, I always think about government should be doing things that we can't do for ourselves individually. We should always be thinking about what's in the interest of the majority of our population. I don't think that is what often passes into policy because there are many interests. And when somebody gives you a donation of $1 million, obviously your door is going to be open to that individual or that company, and they're going to help shape policy. But in my mind, we should be thinking about what's going to help the most people. For example, our public education system serves 95% of the kids in the state. So we want to make sure that we're funding it well, that we're paying our teachers well, that we're providing the very best education. Right now, I don't feel like we are because we are underfunding our public schools. In this last session, the legislature passed the voucher program that will take even more money out of our public schools. And being on the appropriations committee, I was able to watch and listen to those who are shaping our budget. And for example, the Texas Education Agency Commissioner, Mike Morath, put money into different buckets because he doesn't trust our schools. And I think that's so unfortunate because when you do that, when you tie their hands and make their spending so inflexible, it doesn't work for every district. And we've learned from districts that I represent, Leander ISD, for example, is really struggling. They actually came out worse after the budget this time. They lost $10 million. When we told the author of the bill, he said that's an unintended consequence. And so we should go back and fix that. Well, we've reached out to the TEA commissioner and said, look, there was an unintended consequence with this bill, but it means $10 million for our school district, and they're going to have to close down schools if they don't get that money. And so we're still waiting on an answer on that. But that's one example of how we serve the greater good through what we do in the legislature. Healthcare is another example. Texas is known for having the highest rate of uninsured people, and we should turn that around. We don't want to be known as the state with the most uninsured. We don't want to be known as a state that has the highest maternal mortality, but unfortunately we are.
I got to tell you, that's about to get a lot worse if they do not renew these subsidies. From a personal aspect, we just had our open enrollment information sent to us early so that we could make the decision whether or not to keep our current health insurance company that will increase all plans across the board to 17% higher than what they are, or we can switch to a completely different plan that doesn't cover our physicians, that'll only increase the fees by 3%. So, and that's before they've even made the decision on these subsidies. So these things are going to just get exponentially worse, and it really is going to come down to the state governments to compensate for what's been taken in this big, beautiful bill. This big, awful bill.
Right. I call it the big, ugly bill.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
You can say on television.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's like the federal government is pushing the responsibility down to the state government, and then the state government pushes responsibility down to local governments. For example, we have our integral care here in Travis County that picks up the slack. When people don't have insurance, they end up going to the hospital, to the emergency room, and then integral care ends up paying for it. And that comes out of our property taxes. Whereas if the state and the federal government were doing what's really smart, economically smart, they would be making sure people can go see primary care doctors, get their health taken care of. And that way they won't end up in the emergency room, which is so incredibly expensive.
Yeah. And so I have heard people today, just in my job, in my workplace, openly saying that they were just going to let their health insurance go and start visiting the emergency room. That's not like, this is not a good thing. Where it's 2025.
Right. I know. Our healthcare system is a great big mess.
Another polite way to say things.
So because you already work in this, you've done this for 4 years, so you're not new to this. How would you be able to help as lieutenant governor that you can't help as a House representative? Like, what powers would you have?
The lieutenant governor and the speaker of the House really do set the agenda. So that you'll notice House bills and Senate bills are numbered. The first 30 or so are the high priority bills. And those are the bills that really get first priority. And they're going to get through the system in most cases, unless they're just too controversial. But the leadership sets the tone of the session of what's going to be prioritized. And so that's how. I was on the insurance committee this time. We certainly talked about the fact that we've got to figure out how to lower the costs of health insurance, home insurance, car insurance. But the one bill that they were really focused on in our House committee was going to actually make health insurance worse. It would have allowed employers to only cover what is federally covered. And for the most part, that's good. But over the last decade in Texas, the Texas Medical Association has been advocating for, in addition to that, which is covering rehabilitative care when somebody has had a head injury or a spinal injury. And that has been really impactful for people that have strokes or head injuries. They need that rehabilitative care so that they can lead a productive life after that injury. And so the Medical Association and doctors worked so hard to get that added. If we had passed this bill, which was a cost-saving measure, it would have taken that away from folks. And then who knows if they would have gotten the care that they need. So unfortunately, I think a lot of times we look at a problem and we try to solve it in a way that's not beneficial to the vast majority of people. Mm-hmm. We should sit down with doctors and experts. What are the big cost drivers in your industry and how can we change that? And I think that they do have some ideas. They're just not being listened to.
Yes.
Is it possible, since I already have you on this podcast right now, to ask you to do something about money being in politics, about our politicians being bought? That's, I think, the biggest problem that I have, because I feel like that my voice as a constituent, I called every single solitary day. I called my representative multiple times a day. That office, everybody that was in her office knew me. Everybody knew me. I called every single day. I sent emails every single day. And when you can't get we don't know, they're uninformed about it. And I'm like, look, I have sent you. And so the bill that I'm talking about specifically was SB3. I have a master's degree in pharmaceutical science with multiple specialties in cannabis and CBD as medicine. So I gave her everything that I knew about cannabis. I've written a book. I have a school. Like, she was informed. Mm-hmm. And I still never got anything, like no phone call, no, nothing. And then she still votes against it when I'm giving her like statistics. I'm not saying that she had to be on my side, but I am saying you do have to. I know that where I live at, there were not people that were calling her every single day, not like I was. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I understand that you have to like take everybody into account, but if you're not listening to
anyone,
people that are calling you,
Well, first of all, I commend you for calling your representative, and I hope you also called your senator and the governor.
Yes.
So your question was how to get money out of politics, because obviously they're going to listen to the people that are giving them big donations. Mm-hmm. And in Texas, there's no limit. So I have a family member who lives in Oklahoma, and every election cycle I call him up and say, hey, can you donate? And he's like, now what's the limit? Oh, there's no limit, whatever you want to give me, which is just crazy. So I have filed bills while I've been in the legislature to limit it. The first time I filed the bill, it was a limit of $15,000 per individual contribution, which seems pretty reasonable. Like one person giving you $15,000, you might pick up the phone and answer it, but it's probably not. You still have the ability to say no to them. But when it gets beyond that, it makes it harder to say no to that person. Absolutely. Well, I could see that wasn't going anywhere. So I thought, what if I make the limit so high that even who could oppose it? And so in one session, I was able to get on the floor a vote on 50 times what a congressional candidate can get. They're limited, at that time, they were limited to around $3,000 per individual contribution. So 50 times that would have been 150,000, and it still didn't pass, which is crazy. So in Texas, we don't want to limit, well, other members don't want to limit themselves, but I agree. We should have campaign contribution limits and a lot more rules around contributions.
So these donations are specifically campaign donations. So they have to be used prior to the election, correct?
No, and that's the thing too. Like, we don't have to use everything that we collect in one election cycle, so it can be used afterwards. And I will say that that's helpful in a way because our staffs aren't paid a whole lot, and a lot of members do use their campaign funds to supplement their staff pay. A lot of members will give them a bonus at the end of the year or the end of the session. And so it was helpful for me. And there's some things that we can't pay for in the Capitol office, silly things like coffee. Like, really? So I ended up spending campaign funds to buy coffee and paper towels and silly things like that. But that's important too.
So this is like your war chest petty cash situation.
Yeah, but the governor has accumulated millions and millions of dollars, which makes it really hard for anyone to compete against a governor who's got what, $60 million or something crazy like that in his war chest.
And that makes it really money. Hard. That's not counting new donations because he'll get them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it just makes it seem, if somebody paid me $1 million to do a thing, then I owe that person that thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that that's what happened with Dan Patrick. Right. We all know that that's what happened with SB3. We all know that that's what happened with SB2,
all of it.
Yeah. We know that all of those bills were bought and paid for. That does not seem like democracy.
Right.
No,
I agree.
That, you know what I mean? I guess I'm looking to you as a leader, like, what can we do as citizens to stop this?
Well, we've got to elect people who are willing to put in place campaign finance laws, limitations. I will say, though, it's really interesting that the governor did veto the bill, because that tells me that there was so much public pressure that he might have felt like his reelection was threatened if he didn't veto it.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
So the public pressure did work, I will say.
Remember that. Like, everybody needs to remember that. We have been able, in just these little campaigns, I mean, think about what just happened with Disney and Hulu. That was less than a week. And we had protested enough to the point where they put this comedian back on the air. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, free speech matters. Your First Amendment matters.
Yeah.
So just to know that a social media campaign can drive that. Like, we can apply that to every issue, you guys.
Yeah, but we have to get people to care about every issue. And that's the thing. You have to care that much about it. Like, if we're talking about taking away our vices.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I noticed, because there was a different turnout between the SB3 testimony turnout and the redistricting turnout.
Yeah.
There is a significant difference between the two. I kind of wish that we had that same. Well, I do wish that we had that same backing for the redistricting whenever that was going on, because I mean.
Yeah.
Well, remember, that's a partisan issue, though. Like, you have the Republican reps telling their constituents, this is going to be good for you. This is going to give you more representation. You're the only thing that matters. And then at the same time, we know that it's not true, but those constituents that are in that fishbowl at that moment, and this is their voice of reason, that's what they're going to go by. And when it came to SB3, that polls at what, 73% of Texans with support? Like, of course the turnout was going to be bigger. We just have to make them care about the redistricting as much as they care about their weed.
But we don't. It's just that people are uninformed and they just don't know. They just have no clue what is redistricting. I mean, how many times do we have to explain what redistricting and gerrymandering meant? Like, over and over and over again. People just didn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that we even had to have the conversation right now is absurd to me, because there's so many other bigger issues to focus on, flooding, and we're focused on something that we're not even supposed to have a conversation about for another 5 years.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, I think what will push that issue is that some Republicans may lose their seats, and then that might make them think, maybe we went overboard. Maybe they're, who knows what will happen. It'll be interesting to see too what happens in California, because there is a Republican that filed a federal bill. He's new to Congress, and he's potentially going to lose his seat if California is successful in passing their new maps. Governor Newsom redrew them to get 5 additional Democratic seats to counter what's going on in Texas. And so this Republican there in California is kind of worried about his seat. And honestly, there could be some surprises here in Texas with everything that's going on with Trump and the big ugly bill and the impacts that it will have. I do think there's still, even with the redrawn maps, I think there's some opportunities for people to say, look, I'm not happy with what's going on right now. My prices haven't come down. Affordability is still high. Unaffordability is still high. I'm not getting the healthcare I need. This voucher thing is impacting my kids' schools. So I do think there might be some surprises in the 2026 election cycle.
I agree with you. Have you seen the special elections that have happened so far? It's
right.
kind of a wipeout. Like, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. But I think what it goes to show is that overall, America as a whole, even with these crazy social media posts you see and these crazy rallies you see on TV and just the incidentals that are presented to us, I think as a whole, everybody's kind of moving back to the center. Everybody's becoming a little bit more moderate. I am a raging progressive, and these two individuals on this podcast with me are 100% not, and more than likely a year ago we wouldn't be talking. But when you find common ground with someone, you can expand on every issue with that, and eventually you find out that the three of us have more in common than people that I spent years voting alongside with.
That's why I don't like labels, because I think sometimes people jump to conclusions. Oh, progressive is bad, or liberal is bad, or conservative is bad, depending on where you're standing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you take the labels off and say, well, what is it you really care about? Do you care about your kid's neighborhood school? Most people do. Do you care about being able to have healthcare without having to do a GoFundMe page? Most people do, and a lot of people know friends who have had to use GoFundMe because they simply couldn't afford some big emergency procedure. And as a realtor, I used to see people that had medical emergencies that kept them from being able to buy a home. It's like, that shouldn't be how it is.
Are you currently a practicing realtor?
I am. I actually do have one listing right now, but I put most of my work aside so that I can run full time.
I'm just asking because I'm about halfway through my Texas real estate classes, and I have to tell you, the economy has almost stunted my progress because it's just so daunting to think that I'm going to get through these classes and then the apocalypse will be on the other side.
The rapture.
The rapture already happened. We're still here. Now we're working on apocalypse. Come on,
So I got into real estate in the early 2000s, but then 2008 was when the bubble burst, and it was a really bad market. So I remember when houses were on the market for over 6 months, and then things turned around. And for so many years, it's been like, a house is selling a day. So the realtors that came in during that time were like, oh my God, the world's falling apart. Like, it's taking more than a week to sell a house.
So really what you're saying is we had this really incredible kind of ridiculous market for a while, and we're moving towards a more normalized market, and I should just finish my classes and start selling houses. Is what you're saying.
I mean, we're always going to be moving, so there's always going to be opportunities in real estate, so keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I did want to ask you, what would be the very first thing that you would do? Like, let's say it's inauguration day, you've been elected, we're in office. What is Vikki Goodwin's first move as lieutenant governor?
Oh my gosh, there's just so many things that I'm so excited to be doing, but we're going to figure out what those top 30 issues are. And I will tell you, my number one issue is public education, making sure that we are funding our public schools so that they can stay open, so that they don't have to keep enlarging the class sizes, so that special ed students get what they really need. So that will be my number one thing. And what I see an opportunity is that we put $1 billion into vouchers this session. That's an easy $1 billion that we can bring back to our public schools. We also kept $4 billion from being spent. So at the end of session, the speaker and the lieutenant governor and governor put out information about what happened during session. And one of their one-pagers was talking about the budget and how we underspent by $4 billion, what we are allowed to spend at the state level. There's 3 different limitations on what we can spend. One of them, we underspent by 15 billion, another by 10 billion. But the most conservative limitation, we still underspent by 4 billion. So that's another several billion we could put into our public schools. Whether our economy will continue to do as well and whether we'll have that opportunity next session, I don't know. But there's also a lot of places. Sometimes people say, oh, you're a tax and spend Democrat. Not really. I'm actually fairly conservative when it comes to the economics. I think that we can always look at what we're spending and where we're spending it and do better. And one example might be currently the governor is building a big detention center somewhere in South Texas. I'm not even sure where, and I'm not even sure that he really got the authority from the legislature. He's just kind of doing it. And I don't know that that's really necessary at a time when we're seeing fewer immigrants come across the border. But that's a huge expense. So I think there are savings to be had. But my number one thing will be figuring out how we really fund our public schools, how we put more money into healthcare, how we put more focus on water infrastructure, because water is going to be a huge issue going forward. There's the joke that as people are moving to Texas, they are not bringing their own water with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we sure do like to contaminate ours and then sell off the good stuff to the billionaires. So,
yeah.
Or guys, just become billionaires. It's really simple. All the problems are solved. Just everybody become a billionaire right now. It's my master plan.
So, speaking of schools, what are your thoughts on the separation of church and state? I know we passed a bill, the bill that allows us to put the 10 commandments in schools, or requires the 10 commandments being put in schools. Can you tell me what you think about this?
Oh my gosh. I totally believe in the separation of church and state. And I just think it's really unfortunate that we are requiring some schools to put the 10 commandments on the wall. So the only schools that don't have to do it right now are those that are in the lawsuit that is has an injunction against it. But and also the other schools don't have to spend their money on the posters. The posters have to be donated. But my understanding is there is some wealthy guy out in West Texas that has collected money to buy all these posters for every classroom.
The same one that had implemented?
There's always that guy.
To me, that's just crazy. Again, my chief of staff, she is Hindu, and she talks about the fact that her child goes into the classroom, and if it right now it's not on the wall, but were it to be on the classroom wall, then her child would say, oh, is Christianity better than my religion? Yeah. And why do we have that on the wall, but not anything representing my religion on the wall? Same thing if, we're a Jewish student or a Muslim student or an atheist student. I mean, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not allowed to talk about their feelings in school anymore, but we're allowed to assign a religion to everyone when they walk in the door. Perfect. That makes complete sense.
But it's just silly. It's like, what are you gonna tell a child about adultery? Like, what are you gonna what do you?
Right.
Like, that's not. But they want to burn books that have actual
history. They want to burn history. They don't.
Yeah.
I had this argument with somebody online today where they were talking about how the libraries were full of porn and that we were going to have to take all this stuff out because it's corrupting our children and we're transing our youth. And I'm like, oh, did
you
your
see
child
the book?
I said, did your child come home trans? Is your child trans? Because I have 5 in public school and not a one of them has come home trans. They've also not come home with books containing porn. They haven't brought that home. I don't know. What book are we talking about? Are we talking about The Diary of Anne Frank, Mouse, 1985, The Outsiders? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh gosh, that might make
The Color Purple.
The
This might make
Bible.
people uncomfortable. We can't have
Huckleberry
that. We
Finn.
can't have people feeling uncomfortable.
Has anybody actually sat down and read the Bible, you guys? It is filthy.
Oh my gosh.
Filthy.
I don't know if y'all saw it, but the House floor, when Josie Garcia got up and started talking about some of the stories that are in the Bible,
Oh, she's
we were
a
all
mess.
like, where is she going with this? Because we didn't know. It was hysterical. You know,
Yeah.
she was
Oh my
telling
God.
the stories in the Bible without telling that they were the stories in the Bible until we finally were like, oh, we see where she's going with this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I love
and
that.
she's a mess like that too. She's so funny. I feel like I'm old enough. I remember being maybe in like 7th or 8th grade when they where they banned Bibles at school, where you couldn't have Bibles at school in the state of Texas, where they said you could no longer do that.
Interesting. I don't remember that, but you know, the whole thing is if we want kids to have good values, first of all, we have to emulate them. We have to show them what those good, you know, show them respect. And so that they know, hey, this is how to respect somebody. You know, if we want honesty, integrity, ethics, all those things, then I think our schools can teach that without religion.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
parents can teach that without the schools. I think
Yeah.
I think we're giving too much power to the schools and letting them just literally do what they've been doing, from taking away their cell phones and setting restrictions for certain bags, and even with this with the 10 commandments, and kind of imposing, Christianity, which I'm Christian myself, but I mean, I do that at home. I go to church for
Mhm.
that. That's outside of school. I want my kids to go to school to get educated, to learn.
Yeah.
Faith is something precious to me, and I feel that should be taught at home.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Vikki, what do you propose can be done to fix this dinosaur of a power grid that we have here in Texas?
Well, actually, we have really improved our power grid here in Texas. I don't know how things are in your area, but we didn't have a conservation notice coming from ERCOT this summer. And part of that is because of all of the wind, solar, and battery power that we have now. As
Awesome.
I have been driving all over the state for my run, and I've been seeing a lot of new wind and battery and solar all over the state. And it's really critical too, because with these data centers and with the
Mhm.
expansion of AI, they need a lot of power and a lot of water. So our grid has become more resilient. But what I hope to do when I'm lieutenant governor is bring in experts to help me with policy. And the expert I would bring in for power is Doug Lewin. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of him, but he is nationally recognized as a leader in power issues, electricity issues, and he actually happens to be my constituent. So I have gotten to know him. He also helped the caucus that the House set up on energy and the environment. And so he's been a really good source of information for us.
Do you
What
think
about the water for all of those AIs? I'm more worried about the water. I'm worried about us losing water. I would rather that they put in some type of desalination system to use the ocean water than to suck up all of the water that we have. In
Yeah.
Amarillo, a lot of us are on the Ocala aquifer. A lot of us have wells. We don't have city water.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, you'll get like, my mom had it a couple of years ago where her well just went dry, and it was just dirt, like dusty mud that was coming out, and they had to dig deeper. And when you dig
Mhm.
deeper like that, like you can only do it so many times, and those wells are not cheap. It's
Yeah.
really expensive to dig a well.
Yeah, like I said, water is going to be one of the really big issues going forward. And just recently, I went to Corpus Christi, where they were considering a desalination plant, but really that was to help industry. Industry needs the water, whether it's data centers for AI, or in this case, it was, I think, the plastics industry. But they use a lot of water. And so in my opinion, it should be that they have to pay for this. The Corpus Christi City Council actually canceled the project because it had gone from costing 100 million to 1.2 billion. And they were
Whoa.
like, oh my God, we can't afford that. Plus, it would have taken something like $30 million a year to maintain. So they said, we simply can't do that. It's too expensive. Again, if industry comes in and needs that, they're going to have to pay for that infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
But don't
sure.
we have to pass bills to prevent them from using our water? Or
Yeah,
does
I
that
mean,
go down to the local situation where the local government has to say, no, you can't use the water?
yeah, y'all might have a similar situation where you have somebody with a lot of money buys land that allows them to, what we call, put their straw into the aquifer and pull out as much water as they want. And that's the other crazy thing about the state is we have groundwater conservation districts that are supposed to regulate the water in the aquifers that's underground, but they have very little enforcement authority. My first session, I actually created one in my district that operates on the Trinity and Edwards aquifers, but they don't have much revenue and they don't have much authority. So what we need to do is really rethink how we govern our aquifers here in Texas.
It might be nice to have some sort of an office that's specifically for monitoring those aquifers with a representative in each district. So maybe another seat to talk about. But I think you're right. I mean, look at what's happening in Oklahoma and Arizona and Nevada, the water wars that they have on a regular basis. New Mexico, they're already fighting for water. So we see what that looks like. We have an opportunity to mitigate that now. We just need to do it.
Well, one of the really cool things is that a lot of cities that have run into problems have been thinking of reuse. So like your HVAC creates a lot of condensation, water comes off of that. That can be reused in a building, particularly for flushing toilets. Maybe not for drinking, but we flush a lot of water down the drain through our toilets. Also, the Capitol is hooking up to the purple water pipes underground. Purple water meaning it's like gray water, reuse water, to water the lawn at the Capitol, and that will actually save 45 million gallons of water a year.
Holy
Wow.
good.
We also use a lot of water on our lawns, and so some of it is about educating. And again, as a realtor, I see builders a lot of times putting in St. Augustine yards and watering them like crazy, get them established. We've got to encourage them away from that practice. Like, let's put in drought tolerant native grass.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wish that native landscaping was a bigger trend. I really, just outside of the cost aspect of it, the wildlife that you're supporting, the bees and the butterflies and everything else that pollinates our food and keeps us alive, we could assist with that if we would just do native landscaping.
Yeah.
And it would save us a ton of money, a ton of money, you guys.
One of the bills I passed this session, which really was like important to the group that was advocating for it, but it always to me seems like such a little thing. It was called the brown grass bill. So basically HOAs cannot penalize homeowners if their grass turns brown during a drought, because right now a lot of times HOAs will penalize homeowners and then they have to run their sprinklers, which uses more water. So I had that bill, but unfortunately Dan Patrick was in retribution mode. He was angry at me for running for his seat for talking about it. And so none of my bills passed, but I had another member carry the same exact bill because we were both working with this advocacy group and it did pass under her name. So I don't care whose name it is.
Rep. We appreciate you. Thank you, Rep Goodwin, for that as well.
I don't even know how something like that would even work in a place like San Antonio. Everyone's grass is just so, there's not even grass right now. It's pretty much it's pretty much a desert. Everything is so chapped.
But that's, again, if you have native landscaping, then you're already building in the plants and shrubbery it's made to tolerate the changes in our Texas weather. So like if you're planting the types of plants that can resist the heat, that can resist the drought, then you don't have parking lots for your front yard 4 months out of the year.
San Antonio's actually done some good work around water conservation too. So they put on a conference and talked about their conservation bills, and some of them were ideas that gave us ideas for bills.
Yeah, that's why everyone's grass is dry. There's always like one house on a block that just has the greenest grass and everyone else is just brown.
It's painted. They're liars. We're being betrayed.
Well, in Austin, they go around and they look at that, and then they'll send a letter saying, you're running your sprinklers too much. You're going to get fined if you keep doing that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we get drought restrictions here pretty often. It's like the odd numbers of your address. You could only water on certain days.
On certain days.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
we get that too.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of
So-
people some people don't really listen to that.
No, of course not. You just wait until midnight and water your yard while nobody's looking. Duh.
Speaking of
Don't
grass,
do that.
Speaking
one
of
of the
grass,
things that's or that you're completely totally different from Dan Patrick would be your stance on cannabis in the hemp industry. What do you think that would look like in an industry where we have like regulations, a successful industry? What does that look like to you?
yeah, well, I think that similar to alcohol, we should have an age limit, like, 21 and up,
Mhm.
fine. I would like to see more information on the packaging so that people know what they're getting, so they know what the concentration is,
Mhm.
or, and also what are the other ingredients. I just think packaging could go a long way to make sure people are informed consumers.
Yeah.
More testing to make sure everything's safe, and like, what are the impacts of, like, I don't think there's been a lot of study on marijuana and cannabis and THC because it has been illegal.
Mm-hmm.
We should have more.
There's tons of studies on it. You just kind of have to know where to look and how to interpret those studies.
Mm.
I think one of my biggest things that happened during this session is people that were going to testify that were leaders of the industry or experts are not actually experts, or you know what I mean? They may be the leaders of the industry based off of their popularity, but not necessarily off of their know-how. And I think there was a lot of misinformation that was going through. Like, one of the biggest things that I know representatives seem to understand is the 0.3% by dry weight rule. So if I have two bottles and this one's empty and this one's full, and they're both the same exact size and can fit the same amount into them, which one can I fit more THC in? The full one, because it's the dry weight. So it's 0.3% of the dry weight of the product. So it doesn't matter. If I have a cookie and a brownie and they're
Oh no.
both dense, the mass of it, I can fit more THC in. So it's not 0.3% as in 3 milligrams. And that's what they didn't seem to understand. And nobody could explain that for some reason. So there's just a whole lot of like misinformation and just misunderstandings on the way that things worked. Or
Yeah.
And it seems,
you know what I mean?
and it almost seems like small nuances, but like these little understandings of how everything works is it's like a big part of
Well, it's armchair experts spouting off talking points that they've been paid to repeat on the House floor or the Senate floor. So you're not dealing with anybody with any background, anybody with any education in the topic that they're supposed to be creating law on. When somebody like Chastity writes legislation for them and hands it over, they have no interest in it because their donors have already told them what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well, I would be interested in knowing, because I have heard, what is it? The, not hemp, not cannabis, but I don't understand enough about Delta 8, but isn't that a lot stronger? So
No.
honestly,
So
I'm not
you have converted cannabinoids. We're gonna give you a whole weed lesson. So Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, HHC, THCP, all of these things, these are generally converted cannabinoids. There are some that are not converted cannabinoids, and based off of the federal law and the Texas state law, synthetics are illegal, period. Synthetics like K2, right?
Okay.
So
spice.
here's a huge issue, and the cannabis industry is going to kill me right now for telling this to a representative, but there are cannabinoids like THCP or THCO that are very often not converted from the hemp plant, right? Because so the definition of hemp is any part of that plant, whether growing or not, including the seeds of the plant, isomers, isolates, salts of isomers, all of the different things. So every chemical in the cannabis plant is considered legal, right? So what they've done is they'll take like 5 pounds of cannabis, put it into a machine, and then add a solvent like ethanol, and then they raise the temperature very slowly. So let's say at 125 degrees, at 125 degrees causes boiling for CBG or CBGA, which means that it would evaporate to the top of that machine, and I could pull a vacuum on it and isolate that one cannabinoid, right? And so they'll do that with each one of these cannabinoids. So they'll take CBDA, and then they'll take that and put it into another machine and add acids and solvents and all of these different things, and they'll convert those over into a different compound like Delta 8 or Delta 10. But we can also make things synthetically by petrochemical conversion, right? Which would make it illegal. And so the problem is that although these other products can be converted, we can't tell whether or not they were made from converted cannabinoids or they were made from petrochemicals, right? So most often, like Delta 8, Delta 10 will for sure almost always be converted because the CBD molecule and the THC molecule are so very similar. We only have to add an extra hydrocarbon or subtract an extra hydrocarbon to make it into these other ones. So they're very cheap to make. But other ones that take a long time to make, we can synthesize those. And I can test it and it's going to say it's THCO or it's THCP, but we can't tell whether or not it was converted from a cannabinoid or if it was synthesized from a petrochemical precursor. And so that's where we see, and those are only certain cannabinoids. That's kind of the problem. That's where we get into this like sticky issue of what they call synthetics, but are not actually synthetics. They are chemical byproducts made from cannabis, but it would be like in the smoke most often. It's not something that is already in the plant as the plant is green and growing. It's something that's going to be converted by adding a lot of heat to it. And it'll be in such a minute quantity that we can't extract it out most of the time. So we convert it from other cannabinoids. And if we don't do that, then we make them synthetically, and that's illegal. But
so is there, I mean, would packaging or labeling rather solve that issue?
Testing could help with the issue. Outlawing certain cannabinoids that are very often petrochemical conversions would probably be the, you know what I mean? Certain ones, right? That are going to be cheaper to get based off of that. But here's the thing is Delta 9 is what is legal in Colorado, California, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Washington, any legal state, any state that has a legal cannabis law. Delta 9 is what is legal there, right? There's not a difference between the THC that's coming from something that's hemp or something that's coming from marijuana because it's the same exact plant. The only difference is the amount that's produced in the hemp plant versus the amount that is produced in the marijuana plant, right? But they're both the same exact plant. So Delta 9 is legal in that percentage underneath the Agricultural Improvement Act, just like that marijuana would be legal in one of these other states. Why are we making converted cannabinoids? We're doing that because we didn't understand the law or understand the science of the cannabis plant in the first place. It's kind of like if I say I had this cow that I loved my whole entire life, and I made this beautiful burger, and I made the bun homemade and grew the lettuce and the tomato, and then here's a McDonald's burger. Which one do you want? Right? That's the reality of what's happening in the cannabis industry. Do you want the converted cannabinoid or do you want the real actual plant? And so, I'm a purist, so I want the plant.
I'm not going to be your friend knowing that you murdered your cow, but I will 100% eat that burger.
So you said that you actually had some written policy that you gave to legislators and they ignored it.
Yeah.
So
actually, the bill that was introduced in the second legislation, it was HB 54 and 53.
Something like that.
Right. Those were part of our bill that we introduced, but I also gave my representative, I sent to all of the representatives and everything, like anything and everything that I know, my contact information. Happy to give you my contact information as well. So yeah, I have a whole school. I sent them literally everything about how the endocannabinoid system works.
She wrote an education program. She is our cannabis savant. So if you need to know anything about anything having to do with hemp, call Chastity. She has got your back.
You would definitely be on my expert panel when I get into office.
For sure.
Absolutely. I also I met with with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick when he came. Well, I protested against Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick when he came to Amarillo. But I also snuck into his press conference that he had at the airport and had a brief moment to speak with him. What do you think that he did wrong when it came to SB3? Like, what do you think that it was that, or why do you think that he was not well received in his venture to save the children?
Well, I mean, it was an all-out ban. There was no consideration for the businesses that have been established. There was no consideration for the fact that veterans are using these products to stay off of harsher opioids and things like that. I mean, there was just no consideration for the nuance of the issue. Instead, it was just, it's bad, so we have to have a ban. And without really, like you said, understanding.
Yeah.
Or
even
oh my gosh, the hyperbole, the absolute
drama,
ridiculous exaggeration. Like him having that press conference with the hometown hero products and throwing
the item at the reporter.
Eat them and you'll die. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is
I mean, they wanted to, or Lieutenant Dan Patrick wanted to frame it around protecting the children, but he was acting like a children, first of all. But even all the lobbyists that he gets these this money from, their companies, their alcohol companies, they have stuff like twisted teas and fruity drinks and stuff with like nice, cute little packaging on it. And you could definitely go to a store and look at two Mountain Dew, or not Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew cans now. They have Mountain Dew cans, and it looks like the exact same thing. Here in San Antonio, there was a teacher. I forgot if it was the special session or the regular session. Here in San Antonio, there was a teacher on the last day of school. She brought I think like pizza and sodas for the kids' last day of school party.
It was Mountain
She
Dew.
She didn't know that it was
the hard Mountain Dew,
alcohol Mountain Dew, and all the students drank it. All the students drank it. Yes.
And she was a special ed,
and it was a special ed teacher.
So those kids could have been on meds or whatever. That was the question that I asked him during the thing, and he was like, "I'm uninformed about this." And I'm like, "How do you not know about it?" Because everybody acts as if we're like standing outside of a school with our jackets, like, "Here, you want to buy our drugs?" You know what I mean? Like, these people have stores. These are businesses.
I'll have one marijuana, please.
Yes.
Right. I'll have 2 drugs.
Yeah.
It's the reality is that these are actual businesses, and we're not letting kids into the store. I let kids, let me, if a parent comes in with like an autistic child or something like that, special needs child, we have like a little waiting area for the child to sit in. But we do allow a parent to bring in, if I have to pick out a tincture for this kid or whatever it is. But we're not just letting kids just run in and out of the store buying stuff. Who's like taking their kid to a dispensary and dropping them off? This is insane, right? Nobody's doing this. We all have a 21 and older. You can't purchase anything unless you're 21 and older. You can't see a product unless you're 21 and older. This is just responsible, and there's no law against it. It's just responsible business owners. You know what I mean? And almost everybody's already doing this. It's been something that's been implemented from the very beginning. I'm not saying there's not bad people out there that are doing it, but
the thing that's kind of bizarre is that the industry has done a really good job at regulating itself. And I think I don't know if there's this idea out there that once it becomes legal, that all of a sudden there's just going to be THC beverages in every vending machine at every corner. I don't think, like, we consume now, and I don't drink anymore, but when I do go to a bar, every now and then I'll ask if there's anything, if there's a garden beverage, and usually there's not. So that's not even like, even for somebody who is an adult, who is in a setting where that's available, it's just not. So this whole idea of it just being readily available, if it's not banned, it's ridiculous to me.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think this also kind of takes us back into that medical situation of like being able to choose our medicine and having the freedom to choose what medicines that we use.
Yeah.
which is confusing to me because Republicans have traditionally been very pro freedom and liberty for all. Like that's the way I was raised as a Republican child, was that that we believe that everybody is free for everything to choose what they want, and that government stays out of your business. And so this is very weird. It's been a very
That's what
odd.
they say. It's just not what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm very confused as a Republican. Like this switch, um, it's a weird switch. I don't understand it. So
I mean, Democrats believe in freedom too, and so that's the funny thing is like, why did
Come to
people
our
come to
center.
believe?
It's
Why did
projection.
people believe that Republicans are the party of freedom? But unfortunately, it's
not.
kind of like, right, and it's become like the freedoms that I want.
Yes.
But I'm going to tell you what freedoms you can have.
Yeah.
The freedoms that I want for you to have.
Speaking of which, Vikki, I wanted to ask you, we have one more really important subject that I wanted to touch base on. Immigration in Texas. We have a massive border portion that is just ours. We have an absolute freak show happening down there with Operation Lone Star, the most undignified situation in American history, as far as I'm concerned. I understand that we need to reduce illegal border crossings, but in order to do that, we need to increase the number of immigration judges we have. We need to decrease the amount of time it takes to get through the system, the amount of money it takes.
Yeah.
What would be the steps that you would take to make sure that the border is secure, but also to ensure a dignified pathway to citizenship for people who are trying to come across?
Yeah, I really respect those representatives that live on the border and who are most impacted by people coming across. But also, I hear the stories of how we are a big trading partner with Mexico. And a lot of the people who come across do really important work, like work in the fields, picking our agriculture. They are building our homes and our roads and bridges, doing really hot, dirty construction work, or working in hospitality. So we honestly need these workers. We need to figure out a way to allow them to come in and be productive citizens and work when we have the need for that. And we do. So Congressman Veronica Escobar has a federal legislation. I think we should take what we can and implement that at the state level. And it basically just allows for family units to come across, allows for more judges, like you said. Right now, I think everybody agrees that when it comes to crime and criminals and cartels and that sort of thing, yes, we want to detain them and take them through the court system and deport them if they're violent criminals.
100%.
But what we're seeing right now is not that. And the number of people coming across the border has diminished incredibly, but we're spending a lot of money, like I said earlier, building a detention center when we could use that money instead to pay judges to get them processed quicker. And we certainly should not have ICE going to these hearings where people are trying to go and do the right thing. They're trying to work through their legal immigration process, and they're getting picked up outside of court by ICE. And that's just wrong. So we should look to those experts that are on the border and really know the situation.
And it's not even the courthouses that some of these people have to worry about. We're seeing it in people's neighborhoods. We're seeing it in schools. They're picking up random high school kids, walking home on the street. I saw something today. I don't know how true it is, but there was like a child who was being held by ICE outside while her
Here's
father was
video of it next
inside.
door.
I don't know about that, but I guess there was like an ICE agent. Do you know more about it, Jen?
Yes, they were using this man's 5-year-old autistic daughter essentially as bait to try to get him to come out of the house.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was several ICE SUVs, masked officers in full body armor, and they had this little tiny 5-year-old child absolutely panicked, and they're on a megaphone telling him she can go in if he comes out.
Oh, wow.
I don't know like how much more fascistic you can get than just that snapshot. Like
Mhm.
if you just look at nothing else.
That's not the only instance where something like that has happened. It's
Yeah.
it's getting really ugly, right? It's getting ugly for
I
some
mean, you
people
had
out
an
there for
ICE
sure.
agent murder a migrant in Chicago last week. And in an attempt to apprehend a migrant, he murdered him.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
just think one thing that we seem to really lose grasp of as Caucasian people in this country is that we do not exist above everything else. This is our country and it is everyone else's country too. And so when you have these migrants that have come here, I mean, just take the migrant farm workers, for instance. When you talk about the fields in Florida that went rotten because they didn't have anybody to harvest these crops. Not only are we not receiving those crops as consumables now, but those individuals were not able to come and do that work. They have been now imprisoned in some alligator Alcatraz or whatever we're doing in Texas, or they're in Mexico starving because they couldn't come here and do the work for the season while we have crops rotting in the fields. I don't know a single one of my friends or family that's out there with a shovel ready to dig anything up so that we can harvest anything. So this notion that these people are coming here and taking our jobs or replacing us is one of the most disgusting propaganda talking points I've heard in my life.
Well, and if they're here and they're working in the fields or building our homes or what have you, then they're productive, they're making money, they're paying taxes, and now they're able to buy goods and services that we're making. You know, so it's just, you know, we can either have 1 + 1 is 2, or we can start saying, you know, just the inhumane treatment that's happening right now is just heartbreaking.
Well, and two, if we had more immigration judges, it would be a hell of a lot easier to weed out the criminal element because you process them more quickly, more efficiently, more completely. So we know who we're dealing with at the onset instead of waiting 5-10 years before somebody falls through the cracks in the system and has a criminal record or hurts somebody or whatever the worst case scenario might be. You're pointing out the symptom of the problem without addressing the problem, I guess is my real point.
Yeah. We could do so much better when it comes to immigration. Our federal government has really failed us on that.
On both sides, you guys, on both sides. I'm just going to put that out there. Like, I am all for
release the Epstein files.
Release the Epstein files. And now the Tom Homan tape. Let's see the Tom Homan tape, guys. Let's see that. But I think that as a general rule, when it comes to immigration, we tend to see one aspect of it, and that's just the volume of people. You're not seeing what that volume of people puts into our economy and what part of our load they're bearing for us with nothing in return. Because migrants who come here and work, they do pay into our tax system, but they do not have the ability to pull back out. So they're nothing but contributors.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much time we have left, but I did want to say something about ranked choice voting. And the reason that we've gotten so divisive, in my opinion, at both the federal and the state level is because so few people turn out to vote in primaries. And we've got to change the way we run our primaries. My idea is to have ranked choice voting where you get to vote on all of the candidates, rank them. This is going to take a long time to get passed, I think, in Texas. But there have been some Republicans in the past who also agreed with the idea of that and with citizen-led initiatives at the state level. We've seen citizen-led initiatives at local levels in different cities around the state, but we can't do that at the state level where people can sign a petition. If you get enough petition signatures, then it goes up for a vote. I think that would be extremely helpful too. So we've got to have change
as a bill.
What's that?
Like as a bill, you mean?
We would have to change our constitution to allow for citizen-led initiatives and for ranked choice voting. I actually had a bill that was really narrowly focused, because I think people, it's something we're not familiar with. So it's very uncertain. So let's try it at the city level for nonpartisan races first, so people can really get an understanding of what it is. So think about, for example, in San Antonio, there was a mayoral race with what, 20 candidates?
27. Yeah, it was like 27.
It was crazy. So,
Yeah.
when there's that many candidates, you're going to have a runoff.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, low turnout in these mayoral elections to begin with. For a runoff election, it's really low. So if you had ranked choice voting, you would just say, oh, my favorite is this person. My second favorite is that person. You could continue on down the line, or you could just stop at 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. And then so there's no runoff. They just say, if nobody wins outright, you take the person that got the least number of votes, they're out of the competition, but whoever they voted for as number 2 now gets a vote. And so you look and say, does that give that number 1 candidate enough votes to win? Yes, great. No, then you go to the next lowest, the next candidate that got the lowest number of votes. Anyway, very doable. It's done in other states, and it would really save money. It would save time. We would have a better outcome, in my opinion.
Interesting. I've never
Okay.
heard of that before.
They did it. I know they do it in New York City. I think Mamdani won a rank choice vote. Oh my gosh.
They do it in Alaska, and honestly, that's why Republicans don't like ranked choice voting, because it kept Sarah Palin from winning an election.
Sarah Palin should not have won anything, let alone an election. We did good, guys.
Yeah, and they also have it in Louisiana. We looked at the Louisiana law because we thought maybe that would be something to compare to, and we didn't. We're like, you know what? We don't like the way any of the other states do it, so we're going to come up with a Texas system. We're going to have the Texas ranked choice vote.
Interesting. Well, there's something that we do on our podcast. At the end of every podcast, the person that was before you, which I believe was Mike Swanson, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Left a question for you, and he wanted to know what your favorite board game was as a kid, or for you to play with your family. And then would you leave a question for the next guest?
Oh my gosh. Favorite board game. You know what? I have to tell you, my favorite game growing up as a family was actually a card game called Oh Hell. And part of the fun was that my parents called it Oh Hell. And I was like, oh. But I still play it to this day. It's a really fun card game, kind of like bridge. You have to think.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then and I have to think of a question for the next person.
Yeah, it can be a question about literally anything.
Anything.
Well, I guess what has been your favorite movie to see in the last year?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Okay, if you could say one thing to 100% of Texans at the exact same moment to convince them that you are the right choice for lieutenant governor, what would it be?
We need a good win for Texas.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Oh my gosh.
Really simple.
And then Vikki, how can we find you?
That's easy too. It's goodwinfortexas.com.
Good.
So, and you can
Texas.
spell out the 4, or you can use the number 4, either way, but Goodwin for Texas.
You should have utilized your last name like as your motto somehow, like good win.
I think she did.
It is.
She did.
Like your icon is
Vikki Goodwin, the good win.
I mean, it works. It's such a good name for campaigning.
Sorry, Vikki, you gotta bear
Texas
with
needs
us.
a good win.
Talking about this morning that used Let's Go Brandon or something in their campaign, and I was like, they did not.
It was the MAGA Vato, you guys. I'm sorry. Y'all are really gonna make me email him?
All right,
Okay.
Vikki. We really appreciate you coming on to visit us. And we wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, you could come back on in the future, and we'll have some more to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Y'all
Oh
keep it
my
up.
gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.